Hello chaps, welcome to London. It's a pretty sunny day and I'm on Regent Street where there's lots of flags up for the Queen's Jubilee. So what I want to talk about today is the idea that the greatest love of your life may have been a lie. The greatest love of your life may have been a lie. All right, so it's a cheery one today to be getting on with. What do I mean by this? Well, look, there is a concept that you might be familiar with or maybe not, which is the concept of what's called the alpha widow, all right? The alpha widow. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically what it means is, and it's widow obviously usually applies to a female, and it refers basically to a woman who is still fixated on a previous lover. A woman who is still fixated on some guy that she used to date, you know, the archetypal Chad, I suppose, internet folklore would have it, but whatever, you know, some guy that she used to date who she just really had that strong bond with, those really strong feelings for, and she can't forget him. She can't forget him, and presumably, in most cases, it's him that's broken off the relationship with her. You know, he hasn't wanted to continue to have that relationship with her. I guess it could be circumstantial, maybe it could be something like, you know, they move countries, he has to move country or something, but whatever. I mean, the relationship has been broken off, probably not at her behest, and she's been heartbroken. You know, she's been absolutely heartbroken by this, and she still remains fixated on this dude. Even though, in some cases, it could be many years later, or even decades later, she still holds a flame for this guy who is in the back of her mind, and she just can't forget him. So, what does all of this mean, and what does it mean for you? Well, what it might mean for you is that the relationship that you're in, you know, the precious relationship with your significant other, could be founded on an untruth. In the sense that you have got together with this person, you've got into a long-term relationship with her, maybe you're married to her, you know, or you guys are cohabiting or whatever, you know, you've made significant commitments. And she says that she loves you and she adores you and you are the only one for her and you're the only one in her life and all of that good stuff. But what you don't know, what you're not aware of, is that secretly, in some secret quarter of her heart, or in the deepest, darkest recesses of her mind, actually, she still holds feelings for this other guy. And when you think about it, you think about guys who are married, who've been married for many years, you know, who deeply love their wives. Just think for a moment, if one of those guys found out this was the case with his wife, if he found out that actually, really, deep down, she's still thinking about, you know, Steve, the bricklayer that she met back in 1995, you know, and they had a very brief fling before he dumped her for another woman. And that guy really is her ideal alpha. You know, that guy really is the guy that she would like to have settled down with, she would like to have got into a long-term thing with, but she just wasn't able to because he dumped her. And so now she's settled with this new guy, and you know, she probably loves him and everything. We'll go into that in a second, but he isn't that first guy. He isn't that original alpha. And it, at the very least, it's going to kind of put a damper on things, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest, at the very least, it's going to leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth of any man who finds that out, who finds out that kind of information. And for the most part, he's just not going to find it out because she's not going to volunteer the information. Now, the next question is, how much does this actually matter? And you could argue, getting away from internet hyperbole and nonsense that you get in comment sections and things, you could argue that actually in practice, in real life, when you shut the laptop and go out into the real world, it doesn't really matter actually that much at all. Because the truth is that everybody's had old flames. You know, everybody, well, for the most part, you know, everybody has dated people in the past. And I suppose this can go for guys as well, because guys may also have dated some particular woman or been in a relationship with some particular woman, and he was madly in love with her, and then she dumped him, and he was traumatized by that and very deeply upset and hurt and everything, and then finally he gets over it and he gets together with another girl, but he's still got that little in the back of his head, you know, that sort of little inkling, that little sense of, you know, oh, poor old Sally, you know, what would have happened if we'd have stuck the course and everything. But it seems to be, from my observation and from just talking to people and from life experience, it seems to be somehow more acute in women. This phenomenon, this alpha widow phenomenon, seems to be more acute in women. But as I say, how much does it really matter? Well, maybe it doesn't matter that much, because, you know, whatever's in the past is in the past, right? And for the most part, you're dating in the West, you're dating in London or New York or Miami or wherever it is, you know, you're going to meet women who have had several partners before, to say the least. And that's just part of the deal, that's just part of the game. You know, you're going to meet women who have had partners before, and you're going to meet women who have been in relationships before, in serious relationships before. And, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's just life. That's just how things are, okay? And you, as a mature adult, as a mature human being, you kind of just have to roll with that, don't you? You kind of have to accept that. I mean, I did a video recently in answer to a question that somebody asked me about how do you deal with jealousy about her ex-partners, and I sort of said, well, you know, for the most part, I just don't really raise the issue, to be honest. I mean, you know, you might have some superficial knowledge of, you know, she had an ex and they were together for this amount of time and blah, blah, blah. But I wouldn't really spend a lot of time dwelling on it or even allowing her to go into huge detail about it. If she is, then that I would say is a red flag. You know, so for the most part, the relationships I've had, yes, I've been aware that they've had exes, but I haven't really delved hugely into it. So for practical purposes, you know, and you think about a country like the UK, I don't know what percentage of people are married here, but it's pretty high, I would assume. You know, most people, in the end, most people end up sort of getting married. Even if they divorce later, they end up going down that route. So someone like me is an outlier, really, you know, who hasn't been married. They get married, and, you know, yeah, I mean, it's just part of life, you know. You could get a guy in his 40s or late 30s, and he marries a woman, you know, she's in her early 30s, and maybe she's been married before, you know, and I'm sure she very much loved that guy at the time. And, you know, she's put it behind him. For all practical purposes, it's irrelevant. Because, you know, when you are having kids, having a family, going to Asda on a Saturday morning, taking the kids to football, you know, doing all that kind of stuff, whatever people do, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. The fact that she may in the past have had some guy that actually she rated higher than you, does it really matter? Probably not, for the most part. I think in most cases, and I think this is one of these, as I say, instances where people on the internet sort of talk these things up unnecessarily. But having said all of that, as I say, when these things do come out, you know, if you guys got into an argument and she finally confesses, you know, drunkenly one night, actually, Pete, who I was seeing back in college, he was much better in bed than you are. And really, I wish I'd have ended up with him. When that kind of thing comes out, and you hear about this happening, that is devastating. That's absolutely devastating for the guy. And the problem is that you're never really going to know ahead of time whether she does hold that flame for this other person or not, because it's not really something you can kind of ask. You know, it's not going to be like date 3. Okay, could we just to confirm, have you been alpha widowed by a Chad in the past, and would you like to disclose all the information about it? I mean, you know, you're just not really going to have that conversation. So, so it's something that may be happening in the background, and this is one of the many difficulties, I would say, with McLaren shopping. One of the many difficulties with monogamous relationships. There's a lot, in my experience, that remains unsaid in monogamous relationships because people just don't want to go there, you know. And I'm probably one of the worst proponents for not wanting to go there with various things. But yeah, you know, you don't want to be that dude. You know, because ultimately, really, this is your life. This is your one go at this. You are the hero in your hero's journey on this planet. You want to be the guy that she. You want to be her ultimate guy, right? You know, and so how to ensure that you are? Well, like, you know, we can talk about the usual money, muscles, game, frame. You know, self-improvement, of course. Actually being the best guy that you can be, actually being of value, is the first thing, because if you actually have inherent value and you can communicate that to her properly, I might cross the road, it's getting busy here. If you can communicate that to her effectively, and she recognises that, then hopefully you are the ultimate dude. Hopefully you are, you know, the number one. And you know, you don't have this sort of, it's almost a bit like being retroactively cuckolded, isn't it? It's almost a bit like, she might not be acting out with this guy, she might not be meeting him or having sex with him anymore, or anything like that, but she's still holding that flame for him, you know? And you don't want to be the guy who's on the wrong side of that. Now, I remember years ago, I was in a relationship with somebody, and let's cross the road. Yeah, years ago I was in a relationship with somebody, and I remember finding something that she'd written down on a piece of paper. And you know how these things go. I mean, like, pretty much every girl that I've ever dated, pretty much every woman I've ever dated has gone through my phone, gone through my computer, probably gone through my notebooks, which has gone through pretty much my underwear drawer and everything else, you know. So I don't endorse the notion of looking at somebody's, you know, private writings, but at the same time, yeah, you know, I've had it done to me enough times by women. And anyway, I happened upon this this piece of paper and this thing that she'd been writing, and it was about me. And she'd been writing, it was kind of like a list of pros and cons, I think, about me, and the things that she thought were good about me, and the things that she thought were not so good. And I suppose, you know, it was one of those things, one of those relationships that it was always sort of, there was always doubt about whether it was gonna be there for the long term, you know, for pretty obvious reasons, because I'm sort of a commitment phobic bachelor kind of dude. So women always often have this sort of doubt around me, you know, and she was obviously trying to decide in her head if I was, you know, whether this was worth continuing with or not, or trying to get her head sorted on that score. She's written down these different things, written how intelligent I was, that I was kind, that I was all these different things, which is all very nice. She didn't mention good in bed, actually, but probably forgot. And then there was some stuff on the pros side, on the cons side, and I think it was stuff about, you know, the fact that I was sort of commitment phobic, and maybe she felt she couldn't trust me, and, you know, things like that. But there was a note somewhere on there, there was a reference on there, and this was the one thing that I didn't understand. It was slightly cryptic, and she'd written down there was this one thing on there that was slightly cryptic. She'd written down the sentence, "He will never be mine," or "I know he will never be mine." And I didn't understand that sentence, and I still don't understand that sentence, because ostensibly she might have been referring to me. She might have been referring to me, because what she might have been saying is, I know that however much we may love each other, I know that ultimately he will never be mine because he is independent, he's his own person, and I don't think he's ever going to want to commit to me in the way that I actually want him to commit. So it could have meant that. But equally, and this is the thing that I don't know, equally, it could have referred to another dude. It could have referred to a dude in the past. And she was writing down, there was just something about the way that the page was organised and the way that just the spacing on the page that made it seem slightly ambiguous. And I was aware that she had had an ex, and I think there had been some unfinished business with that particular ex. So, and again, like I said earlier, I mean, I don't go into huge details about this stuff when I'm dating somebody. I'm not going to sit down and ask for all the gory details, because why would I want to do that, right? But I was aware that there was definitely some unfinished feeling with somebody. And so there's a part of me, and quite a large part, that thinks that sentence may actually have applied to that guy. So she was basically saying, this former guy will never be mine. And that perhaps she had to take into account in the whole equation, because it was like, well, I'm with Troy now, and that other guy's not going to be mine, so, maybe he's not such a bad deal or whatever. Now, as it was, I wasn't hugely hurt by that, if it was indeed the more negative interpretation. It sort of struck me a little bit, but I wasn't hugely hurt by it, because by that point I was not checked out of the relationship, but I was, I also had my own doubts about our relationship and whether it would continue. So I was sort of looking for excuses to bail, in a way. I was sort of looking for excuses to bail. But if that had have turned out to have referred to another guy, then, and obviously I'm not with her now, this was a long time ago, but if that had have turned out to have referred to another guy, and that was seriously on her mind, even though we'd been dating for, a few years, I don't know if I'd have been able to continue with that relationship. I don't know if I would have been physically able to bring myself, because what are you then doing? You're basically saying, all right, well, actually, she really loved this dude before. She was so there's some kind of visceral animal thing between them that was so powerful, and she still can't forget about him. But, she settled for me, and she's given me the scraps, so, I guess I'll make the best of that. I mean, I think it would have been very uncomfortable for me to accept that, and I don't think I really could have done that, to be honest. And this is what I mean. You see, if really, however much on the surface you guys are solid, you're a couple, blah, 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 underneath it, actually, there's this hankering for somebody else, and it's not you. Do you really want to be with that person? And if you say, well, yeah, because I love her, and so I'd accept her no matter what. I mean, that's very laudable, but are you selling yourself short? And this is one of the many reasons why relationships, long-term relationships, monogamy is extremely problematic. And some might say better off avoiding. I mean, I don't necessarily say that myself, but you can kind of see the argument, because you get into it with somebody, you get into some sort of intimacy with somebody, but you never really know those dark corners of their heart. You never know the farthest recesses of their consciousness. And this is why, people will often talk about intimacy, and sometimes in the comments people will say, well, Troy, do you not want intimacy and stuff? I'm not sure I'm not sure that real intimacy actually exists. I just don't know if it really exists. And what I mean by that is that, yes, you can be very, very, very close to somebody. I've been very close to people several times in my life. Physically close, emotionally close, spiritually close, all the rest of it. Yeah, absolutely, of course. But do you ever really know them? You know, I've got family relatives who were married for 20 years and then they divorced. Did those people, 20 years, 2 decades, did they ever really know each other? Is that intimacy? I mean, they never speak now. I don't know. I think that as human beings, we are hermetically sealed off to a large degree. I mean, yes, we can share things, but real, true intimacy, I wonder how many couples here today around me, I wonder how many of these couples that are walking past actually share real, genuine intimacy. I reckon it's probably not that many, you know. Just being honest, just being brutally honest. That's what I think. I could be wrong. I don't know, I'm probably wrong. Let me know in the comments. I'm probably being overly cynical and bitter, and I just haven't met the right woman yet and all that stuff, but that's my take on it. Anyway, you don't want to be with a girl who has been alpha widowed. You don't want to be the other dude who's just there to sort of pick up the pieces, and really she would rather have been with Ron from, you know, the football team, but she's kind of settled with you and whatever. You don't want to be that guy. So what you need to do instead is to learn dating skills or enhance social skills so you can optimize your opportunities in the dating marketplace. And in order to do that, you want to grab my collection of books, which is called Renegade Dating Blueprint. The link is below. Also get on my daily email list. Again, the link is below. Free emails going out to your inbox with all of this good content. And that's about it. My voice is going. So my voice went in Miami, so my voice is going a little bit. So I'll leave it there for now. Good to see you. See you again very soon. Bye-bye.